Two people the world had nearly broken. One beautiful sunny morning, in a small village tucked away among the gentle hills of southern France, life moved at its usual peaceful pace. The cobblestone streets glowed beneath the golden sunlight. Lavender fields stretched across the countryside like waves of purple silk. Small cafes opened their doors to the morning air, filling the streets with the aroma of fresh bread, roasted coffee, and warm butter pastries. To anyone passing through, it seemed like the kind of place where nothing extraordinary ever happened. But fate often hides its greatest stories in the quietest places. And this story began long before either of its main characters arrived in France. It began with two people who had spent most of their lives learning how to survive. Their names were Ethan Laurent and Amelia Hart. Neither of them knew it yet, but destiny had spent years preparing them for each other. Hashtag Ethan. Ethan was born in a coastal town where storms arrived without warning. As a child, he loved the sea. His father used to take him fishing before sunrise. Life is like the ocean, his father would always say, sometimes calm, sometimes violent, but if you learn how to navigate it, you'll always find your way home. Ethan believed every word. His father was his hero, strong, patient, reliable, the kind of man who could fix almost anything. But when Ethan was 17, everything changed. His father was diagnosed with a rare illness. At first the doctors were optimistic, then they became cautious, then they became silent. For 2 years, Ethan watched the strongest man he knew slowly disappear. Hospital visits replaced fishing trips. Medicine replaced laughter. Hope slowly turned into fear. The night his father died, Ethan sat beside the hospital bed until sunrise. He didn't cry, not because he wasn't devastated, because the pain felt too large for tears. Something inside him simply went quiet. A part of him never fully returned. His mother tried her best, but grief settled over their home like a permanent winter. Ethan learned an important lesson during those years. Life could take everything from you without asking permission. And because of that, he promised himself something. He would never waste time, never take people for granted, never assume tomorrow was guaranteed. It was a promise that would shape every decision he made. And years later, it would also become the reason losing Amelia hurt so much. Hashtag Amelia. Hundreds of miles away, another child was learning a different version of the same lesson. Amelia Hart grew up surrounded by books. Her mother was a literature teacher. Her father worked long hours as an architect. Their house was always filled with stories. Every night before bed, her mother would read novels aloud. Adventure stories, love stories, stories about people who overcame impossible odds. Young Amelia loved them all. She believed the world was beautiful. She believed people were good. She believed happy endings were real. Then, when she was 12 years old, her mother died unexpectedly.
Un soudain accident.
One phone call, one terrible evening, and the world Amelia trusted vanished forever. After that day, fear became part of her life. Fear of loss, fear of disappointment, fear of loving someone so much that losing them would destroy her. She became quieter, more cautious, more guarded. While other teenagers chased excitement, Amelia built emotional walls. Invisible walls, walls that protected her, walls that isolated her. By the time she became an adult, very few people truly knew her. She smiled often. She was kind. She was intelligent. But she rarely allowed anyone close enough to see her deepest fears. Then one day, she met Ethan, and those walls began to crack. Hashtag the first meeting. It happened on a rainy afternoon, the kind of rain that turns city streets into rivers of reflections. Ethan was 24. Amelia was 22. Neither of them expected their lives to change that day. Ethan had stopped at a bookstore to escape the weather. Amelia happened to be there searching for a novel. Fate often begins with ordinary moments. He reached for a book. She reached for the same one. Their hands touched. Both immediately pulled away. I'm sorry, Amelia said. You can take it. Ethan smiled. Only if you've already read it. She laughed softly. I haven't. Then I think we're in trouble. For the first time in years, Amelia found herself smiling at a stranger. Not because he was handsome, though he was. Not because he was charming, though he certainly could be. It was because he felt familiar, comfortable, safe. The conversation lasted 15 minutes, then 30, then an hour. By the time they left the bookstore, the rain had stopped. But neither of them wanted the conversation to end. They exchanged numbers. Simple, ordinary, yet neither realized they had just met the person who would change the course of their life. Hashtag falling in love. Their friendship grew quickly. Coffee dates became dinners. Dinners became weekend adventures. Weekend adventures became something neither could deny. Love, real love, not the dramatic kind found in movies. Something quieter, something deeper, the kind built through thousands of small moments. Ethan learned Amelia loved old bookstores. Amelia learned Ethan always ordered the same breakfast. He discovered she cried during emotional movies. She discovered he secretly sang while driving. They learned each other's fears, each other's dreams, each other's scars. And instead of running away, they stayed. That was what made their relationship special. Neither of them tried to fix the other. They simply accepted one another. For the first time in years, Amelia felt safe. For the first time since losing his father, Ethan felt whole. 3 years passed, then 4. Everyone expected a wedding, including them. Their future seemed certain. A small house, a family, a lifetime together. But life rarely follows the plans people make. Sometimes the greatest threats don't come from outside. Sometimes they come from the fears we carry within ourselves. And Amelia's fears were still there. Quiet, patient, waiting. The happier she became, the more terrified she felt. Because now she had something precious enough to lose. And deep inside, a voice continued whispering the same question. What if this happiness doesn't last? What if one day everything falls apart? What if losing him hurts more than losing anyone before? At first she ignored those thoughts. Then she fought them. Then she started believing them. And that was when everything began to change. She didn't notice it immediately. Neither did Ethan. But fear was slowly becoming stronger than love. And soon it would force her to make a decision that would haunt both of them for years. A decision neither of them would ever forget. A decision that would separate two people who were meant to be together. And neither of them knew it yet. But the hardest chapter of their lives was about to begin. The coffee shop of second chances. Chapter 2. The life they built together. For a while, it seemed as though the world had finally decided to be kind. The years that followed became some of the happiest either Ethan or Amelia had ever known. Not because life was perfect. It wasn't. Bills still had to be paid. Work was often stressful. Unexpected problems appeared just like they did for everyone else. But there was one difference now. They faced everything together. And somehow, that made even the difficult days feel lighter. Their first apartment was small. Very small. The kitchen barely had enough space for two people to stand comfortably side by side. The bedroom window overlooked a noisy street. The heating system worked only when it wanted to, and the shower had an annoying habit of switching between freezing cold and boiling hot without warning. Yet neither of them cared. To them, it felt like a palace. It was theirs, their first real home. The walls were decorated with photographs from weekend trips, a picture from the mountains, a picture from the coast, a blurry selfie taken during a thunderstorm when they had gotten lost while hiking. Every photo held a memory. Every memory felt like proof that they were building something real, something lasting. One evening, while unpacking boxes after moving in, Amelia found an old photograph of Ethan and his father. She sat quietly on the floor for several moments. Ethan noticed immediately. "You okay?" She looked at the picture. "He looks proud, Dash." Ethan smiled softly. He always was, Dash. He'd be proud now too, Dash. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Ethan sat beside her. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that only exists between people who truly understand one another. The kind of silence that says more than words ever could. Those moments became their favorite moments. Not the vacations, not the celebrations, just the simple evenings spent together. Cooking dinner, watching movies, talking until midnight, sharing dreams about the future. The future always seemed close enough to touch. #, the dream house. One rainy Sunday afternoon, they found themselves looking at houses online. It began as a joke, then became a game, then slowly transformed into a shared dream. "What about this one?" Amelia asked. Ethan looked at the screen. "It's beautiful, Dash. It has a garden, Dash. You hate gardening, Dash." "I know, Dash." "Then why do you want a garden?" Amelia smiled. "Because one day we'll have children, Dash." The room became quiet, not awkward, just meaningful. Neither had ever spoken about it so directly before. Ethan reached for her hand. "You really want that?" She nodded. "One day, Dash." He squeezed her fingers. "Then we'll have it, Dash." Those conversations happened more frequently after that. A future together stopped feeling like a possibility. It became an expectation. Friends began asking when they planned to get married. Family members made jokes about future grandchildren. Even strangers assumed they were already engaged. And honestly, neither of them minded. #, the proposal plan. By the beginning of their 4th year together, Ethan had made up his mind. He was going to ask Amelia to marry him. Not someday. Soon. Very soon. He spent months preparing, researching rings, saving money, planning every detail. He wanted the moment to be perfect. Not extravagant. Not dramatic. Perfect for her. One evening he met his best friend, Daniel, for coffee. Daniel listened patiently as Ethan explained his plan. "You've got the ring already?" Ethan nodded. Daniel nearly choked on his drink. "You actually bought it?" "It's in my apartment, Dash." "You're serious, Dash." "Of course I'm serious, Dash." Daniel laughed. "Took you long enough, Dash." Ethan smiled. The truth was he had known for years. There had never been anyone else, never even close. Amelia wasn't simply the woman he loved. She was the person who made life make sense. The person he wanted beside him through every success and every disaster. The person he wanted to grow old with. And within a few weeks, he planned to tell her exactly that. #, the fear begins. Around the same time, something else was happening. Something Ethan couldn't see. Something Amelia barely understood herself. The fear was returning, slowly, quietly, like a shadow growing longer before sunset. At first it was small, a random thought before bed, a sudden feeling of anxiety during happy moments, an unexplained knot in her stomach whenever she imagined the future. She tried to ignore it, but fear rarely disappears when ignored. Instead, it grows. One night she woke up from a nightmare. Her heart raced. Sweat covered her forehead. In the dream, Ethan had died. The details were unclear, but the pain felt real, terrifyingly real. She sat awake until sunrise. The next morning, Ethan noticed her exhaustion. "You didn't sleep, Dash." She forced a smile. "Just a bad dream, Dash." He kissed her forehead. "It's only a dream, Dash." But Amelia wasn't convinced, because the fear wasn't about the dream. It was about what the dream represented. Loss. The one thing she had never learned how to survive. Hashtag, the walls return. Over the following months, Amelia became increasingly distant. Not intentionally, not because she loved Ethan less. In fact, the opposite was true. She loved him more than ever, and that terrified her. Every happy moment now carried a hidden fear. Every laugh, every kiss, every future plan. A voice inside her kept whispering, what if it ends? What if one day he's gone? What if life takes him away the way it took your mother? The way it took everything else? Ethan noticed the changes. Of course he did. He knew her too well. One evening while preparing dinner together, he finally asked, "Something's bothering you, Dash?" She looked away. "No." "Amelia, Dash. Are you fine?" He placed the knife down gently. "You're not Dash." For several seconds, she said nothing. Then tears suddenly appeared in her eyes. "I don't know what's wrong with me, Dash." Ethan immediately moved closer. "What happened?" She shook her head. "I don't know, Dash." He wrapped his arms around her, and for a while she allowed herself to believe everything would be okay. But deep inside, fear continued growing. Hashtag the ring. A month later, Ethan finally picked up the engagement ring. It wasn't enormous. It wasn't flashy. It was elegant, simple, beautiful. Exactly the kind of ring Amelia would love. He carried it home with a smile he couldn't hide. The entire drive back, he imagined her reaction. The tears, the laughter, the excitement, the future. For the first time in years, life felt hopeful, bright, full of possibility. That evening he hid the ring inside a small wooden box in the back of his closet. Then he sat on the edge of the bed, unable to stop smiling. Everything was about to change, in the best possible way, or so he believed. Hashtag the letter that hadn't been written yet. At the exact same moment, Amelia sat alone in a nearby park. The sky was turning orange as the sun began to set. Children played in the distance. Birds drifted through the evening air. And Amelia cried quietly, because part of her knew what Ethan was planning. She knew him too well. She had noticed the secretive smiles, the nervous excitement, the hidden conversations. And instead of feeling happy, she felt terrified, not of marriage, not of commitment, not of Ethan. She was terrified of happiness itself, because every time she had loved something deeply, life had taken it away. Her mother, her sense of security, her trust, her peace. Now Ethan had become the most important person in her world, and the thought of losing him one day felt unbearable. A terrible idea slowly began forming in her mind. A dangerous idea, one that seemed irrational, yet strangely comforting. If she left first, she would never have to experience being left behind. If she walked away now, she could avoid the pain she feared was waiting somewhere in the future. The logic was broken. Fear often is, but once the idea appeared, it refused to disappear. She sat on that bench until darkness covered the city. And for the first time, she wondered whether loving Ethan was enough to stay, or whether fear would eventually convince her to run. The answer was coming, much sooner than either of them imagined. Hashtag the coffee shop of second chances. Hashtag chapter 3, the day everything fell apart. Sometimes the most devastating moments in life arrive quietly. There is no warning, no Sunday, no dramatic music, no sign that the world you know is about to disappear. One day, everything feels normal. The next day, nothing is the same. For Ethan and Amelia, that day began like any other. The morning sunlight streamed through their apartment window. The smell of coffee filled the kitchen. Amelia stood by the counter preparing breakfast while Ethan searched for his car keys. "Have you seen them?" he asked. She smiled. "They're exactly where you left them, Dash." "Which means?" "In the refrigerator, Dash." Ethan stopped. "You can't be serious, Dash." Amelia laughed. "You put them there last night, Dash." He opened the refrigerator. The keys were sitting beside a carton of milk. For a moment he stared at them. Then he started laughing too. "Okay, I admit it, Dash. You were tired, Dash. I was distracted, Dash." She walked over and kissed his cheek. "You're lucky I love you, Dash." He wrapped an arm around her waist. "No." He smiled. "I'm the luckiest man alive, Dash." Amelia's smile lingered, but beneath it, something hurt, because every time he said things like that, her fear grew stronger. The more he loved her, the more terrified she became of losing him. Hashtag the weekend trip. A week later, Ethan suggested a weekend getaway. Nothing extravagant, just a small cabin near a lake several hours outside the city. A chance to relax, a chance to escape work, a chance to spend time together. Amelia agreed, and for a little while, she managed to forget her fears. The cabin sat beside a beautiful lake surrounded by pine trees. The water reflected the sky like glass. At night, thousands of stars appeared overhead, far more than either of them could see in the city. On their second evening there, they sat beside a fire. The flames danced in the darkness. The air was cool, peaceful, perfect. Ethan looked at Amelia. She seemed happier than she had been in months, and seeing her smile made him certain. This was the moment he had been planning for nearly a year, the moment he had imagined hundreds of times. His heart began racing. Inside his jacket pocket rested the small wooden box, the ring. He reached for it, then stopped. Amelia was staring into the fire, her expression suddenly distant, lost, as though she were somewhere else entirely. Amelia? She blinked. What? You okay? She nodded too quickly. Of course, Dash. But Ethan wasn't convinced. The ring remained in his pocket. Something felt wrong, not because she didn't love him. He knew she did, but because she looked afraid, and he didn't understand why. That night, he decided to wait, just a little longer, a few more weeks, until whatever was troubling her passed. Unfortunately, it never did. Hashtag Amelia's battle. Fear had become a constant companion. Every day, every night, every quiet moment, Amelia fought it relentlessly. She tried journaling, meditation, long walks, even therapy. Nothing seemed to help. The problem wasn't Ethan. The problem wasn't their relationship. The problem was the voice in her head. The voice that kept reminding her how fragile happiness could be. One evening she visited her mother's grave, something she rarely did. The cemetery was quiet. The setting sun painted the sky gold. Amelia sat beside the stone marker for nearly an hour. Eventually she spoke aloud. I met someone, Dash. The wind moved softly through the trees. I know you'd love him, Dash. Tears filled her eyes. He's everything I've ever wanted, Dash. Her voice trembled. And that's what scares me, Dash. The words echoed in the silence. For years she had buried those fears. Now they felt impossible to ignore. She stared at her mother's name, then whispered the question she had been avoiding. What if I lose him too? The wind offered no answer, only silence. And somehow that silence felt worse. Hashtag Ethan's decision. A month later, Ethan made up his mind. Whatever Amelia was struggling with, they would face it together. He wasn't waiting any longer. He planned a special evening. Their favorite restaurant. The place where they had celebrated anniversaries. The place where countless memories had been made. He reserved their favorite table, bought flowers, prepared a speech, and slipped the ring into his pocket. This time, nothing would stop him. Or so he believed. That afternoon, he called Amelia. No answer. He sent a message. No response. A little unusual, but not alarming. At least not yet. Hours passed. Still nothing. The uneasy feeling in his stomach grew stronger. By evening, concern had replaced excitement. He left work early, drove home, walked quickly up the apartment stairs, and opened the front door. The silence immediately felt wrong. The apartment was empty. Too empty. Ethan? No answer. He checked the bedroom. Nothing. The bathroom. Nothing. The kitchen. Nothing. Then he noticed something on the table. A single envelope. His name written across the front. His heart dropped. Slowly, he picked it up. His hands were shaking before he even opened it. Some part of him already knew. Some part of him was begging to be wrong. The letter contained only a few paragraphs. Yet those paragraphs would change his life forever. Ethan, if you're reading this, it means I've already left. I'm sorry. I know those words aren't enough. I know they never will be. The truth is that you are the best thing that has ever happened to me. And that's exactly why I have to go. Every day, I become more afraid. Not of you. Not of us. Of losing you. I know it doesn't make sense. I know it sounds selfish. But I can't keep living with this fear. You deserve someone stronger. Someone who isn't constantly waiting for life to take away what she loves. Please don't look for me. Please don't hate me. I will always love you. Always. Amelia. The letter slipped from his fingers. For several moments, Ethan simply stood there, unable to move, unable to think, unable to breathe properly. No, this couldn't be happening. Not like this. Not after everything. He grabbed his phone, called her immediately, straight to voicemail. Again, voicemail. Again, nothing. The panic arrived all at once. He searched the apartment, as if somehow she might still be there, as if this could all be a misunderstanding. But it wasn't. Half her clothes were gone. Her suitcase was gone. The photographs they kept beside the bed were gone. Amelia was gone. Hashtag the search. Most people imagine heartbreak as sadness. They imagine tears, loneliness, grief. But the first stage isn't sadness. It's disbelief. Ethan spent weeks refusing to accept reality. He called mutual friends. Nobody knew where she was. He contacted relatives. Nobody had seen her. He visited places she loved. Bookstores, parks, cafes. Nothing. Every morning he woke believing he would find her. Every night he returned home disappointed. Months passed. The apartment felt unbearable. Every room reminded him of her. The coffee mug she bought, the books she left behind, the blanket they used during movie nights. Memories existed everywhere. There was no escape. Friends tried helping, Daniel especially, but even he didn't know what to say. One evening they sat in a bar. Ethan stared silently into his drink. Daniel finally spoke. "You can't keep doing this, Dash." Ethan didn't respond. "She's gone, Dash." Still silence. "You have to live your life, Dash." Ethan laughed bitterly. "What life?" Daniel had no answer, because sometimes there isn't one. #### the ring. Several months after Amelia disappeared, Ethan found the ring again. It was still hidden in the closet, still inside the wooden box, still waiting for a proposal that would never happen. He sat on the bedroom floor staring at it. Hours passed. The apartment grew dark. Yet he remained there, holding the future that had been stolen from him. Eventually tears came. The first real tears since she left. Not anger, not frustration. Pure heartbreak. The realization that the woman he loved had chosen fear over a future together. And somehow, that hurt more than anything, because he understood her. He understood why she left. And part of him hated that understanding, because it prevented him from hating her. Even after everything, even after the pain, he still loved her, and that made moving on nearly impossible. But life doesn't stop for broken hearts. The days continued, the months continued, the years continued. Slowly, painfully, Ethan began rebuilding himself. Not because he wanted to, because he had no choice. He had no idea that 5 years later, in a quiet French town thousands of miles away, destiny would place Amelia directly in his path once again. And when that day arrived, everything would change. #the coffee shop of second chances. #chapter 4, 5 years of silence. People often say that time heals everything, but that isn't entirely true. Time does not erase memories. It does not undo mistakes. It does not return the people we lose. What time actually does is teach us how to carry the weight. Some people learn quickly, others spend years trying. For Ethan and Amelia, the next 5 years became a long lesson in living with regret. #year one. The first year was the hardest. For Ethan, every day felt like walking through fog. He continued working. He continued paying bills. He continued answering messages and attending meetings. From the outside, everything appeared normal, but inside he felt hollow. There were mornings when he would wake up and reach across the bed before remembering she wasn't there. Moments when he saw someone with similar hair in a crowd, and his heart would leap before reality caught up. The worst moments came at night, when the distractions disappeared, when the apartment became quiet, when memories grew louder. He tried dating once. A friend convinced him to meet someone. The woman was kind, intelligent, funny. They had dinner together. The conversation was pleasant. But halfway through the evening, Ethan realized something. He wasn't comparing her to Amelia. That would have been unfair. The problem was simpler. His heart wasn't available. Part of it still belonged to someone who had disappeared. The relationship never went beyond that first date. And for a long time, he stopped trying. Across the country, Amelia was fighting her own battle. She had moved several times after leaving. New cities, new apartments, new jobs. Always searching for a fresh start. Always discovering that regret travels with you. At first, she convinced herself she had made the right choice. She repeated the same explanations again and again. He deserves better. I saved him from future pain. I did what was necessary. But those arguments became harder to believe with each passing month, especially during the quiet moments, the moments when nobody else was around, the moments when honesty became unavoidable. Because deep down, she knew the truth. She hadn't left because Ethan wasn't enough. She left because she was afraid, and fear had cost her everything. #year two. By the second year, life had become more manageable. Not easier, just familiar. Ethan eventually moved to a different apartment. The old one held too many memories. Every corner reminded him of what had been lost. The move felt symbolic, like closing a chapter. He focused heavily on work, long hours, new projects, new responsibilities. His career began improving. Promotions followed. Financial stability followed. People congratulated him. Friends said he seemed better. And in some ways he was, but success has a strange way of highlighting absence. The more his life improved, the more obvious it became who wasn't there to share it. Every achievement felt incomplete. Meanwhile, Amelia had started therapy more seriously. For the first time in her life, she was confronting the fears she had spent years avoiding. Some sessions left her exhausted. Others left her angry. Many left her crying. But slowly, patterns began emerging. She started understanding something important. The fear that controlled her wasn't really about losing Ethan. It began long before him. It began with losing her mother. For years she had believed love and loss were inseparable. The closer she became to someone, the more danger she felt. And because of that belief, she had sabotaged the most important relationship of her life. The realization was devastating, because now she understood the mistake. But she had no idea how to fix it. ##### year 3. The third year brought change. Unexpected change. One afternoon, Ethan received an opportunity through work. A major project involving several European companies. The assignment required extensive travel. Most people would have hesitated. Ethan accepted immediately, partly for professional reasons, partly because staying in the same city no longer felt necessary. Travel became an escape. Italy, Germany, Spain, Switzerland, country after country, airport after airport, hotel after hotel. For a while, movement distracted him. New places left less room for old memories. Yet certain thoughts followed him everywhere, particularly one question. Why? Not why she left. He understood that. The question was different. Why hadn't she trusted him enough to stay? That question haunted him more than the breakup itself, because love should have allowed them to fight their fears together. Instead, she had fought hers alone, and lost. At the same time, Amelia experienced a turning point. She attended a support group for people struggling with grief and anxiety. At first, she hated the idea. Talking to strangers felt uncomfortable, pointless. Yet something happened during one meeting. An older woman shared a story about losing her husband. Then she said something Amelia never forgot. Fear promised it would protect me. Instead, it stole years of my life. Those words struck like lightning, because they described her perfectly. Fear had promised protection. Protection from heartbreak. Protection from loss. Protection from pain. Yet all it had actually done was create those very things. That night, Amelia cried for hours. Not because she was healing, because for the first time, she fully understood what she had sacrificed. #### year 4. By year 4, both of them had changed. Life had shaped them differently. Ethan became calmer, more reserved. The sharp edges of heartbreak had softened into quiet sadness. He no longer searched for Amelia online, no longer hoped every unknown number was her, no longer expected miracles. Acceptance had finally arrived. Not happiness, acceptance. The difference mattered. Acceptance meant understanding reality, even when reality hurt. Around this time, he visited southern France for work. The trip lasted only a week, but something about the region captured his attention. The slower pace, the scenery, the people, the atmosphere. Everything felt peaceful. For the first time in years, he experienced something unexpected, contentment, a feeling he thought he had lost forever. The idea remained with him long after returning home. Meanwhile, Amelia finally allowed herself to ask a difficult question. What if Ethan had moved on? The possibility terrified her. Not because he didn't deserve happiness. He absolutely did. But because she suddenly realized she wanted to see him again. Not necessarily to reunite. Not even to restart their relationship. Simply to apologize. To tell him the truth. To explain that leaving had been the greatest mistake of her life. Unfortunately, finding him wasn't easy. Years had passed. People moved. Lives changed. And uncertainty kept delaying action. Tomorrow became next week. Next week became next month. And opportunities continued slipping away. #### year 5. The 5th year became the year everything quietly shifted. Ethan made a decision. He accepted a permanent position in France. Not Paris. Not one of the major cities. A small town called Beaumont. A place so peaceful most people had never heard of it. His friends were surprised. You'll get bored. Daniel said it immediately. Ethan laughed. That's exactly what I'm hoping for. After years of emotional exhaustion, peace sounded perfect. So he packed his belongings, sold what he didn't need, and moved. The adjustment wasn't easy. New country, new language, new routine. Yet gradually Beaumont began feeling like home. His apartment overlooked a narrow street lined with flowers. There was a bakery downstairs, a bookstore nearby, and a small coffee shop he visited almost every morning. Life became wonderfully predictable. Wake up, work, coffee, read, sleep, repeat. Simple, stable, quiet. Exactly what he needed. At the same time, Amelia made a life-changing decision of her own. She was tired of running, tired of carrying old guilt, tired of living in places that never felt permanent. After months of reflection, she accepted a job opportunity in France. She had no idea Ethan was already there. No idea fate was slowly bringing them closer. No idea their paths were about to cross again. She simply wanted a fresh start, a genuine one, not another escape, a beginning. The irony was almost unbelievable. Two people, same country, same region, same small town, neither aware of the other's existence. Destiny working quietly behind the scenes, waiting, preparing, patiently arranging a reunion 5 years in the making. The morning before everything changed, the evening before their reunion, Ethan followed his usual routine. Dinner, a short walk, a book before bed. Nothing unusual, nothing remarkable. He fell asleep believing the next day would be exactly like every other day. Amelia spent that same evening unpacking boxes in her new apartment. Books, photographs, clothes, small reminders of a life she was trying to rebuild. At one point, she discovered an old photograph. Her and Ethan, taken years ago, standing beside a lake, laughing at something neither of them could remember. She stared at the picture for several minutes, then carefully placed it inside a drawer. Not hidden, not displayed, simply preserved. A memory, a chapter. A love she assumed would remain in the past forever. Outside, the streets of Valmont grew quiet. Lights disappeared one by one. The town fell asleep, unaware that two people carrying the same history were now separated by only a few streets. One ordinary morning remained between them and the moment that would change everything. A coffee shop, a familiar voice, a single glance, and 5 years of silence would finally come to an end. The coffee shop of second chances. Chapter 5, the coffee shop in France. Some moments change a life forever. Not because they are dramatic, not because they are planned, but because they arrive when you least expect them. Years later, people often remember exactly where they were, exactly what they heard, exactly what they felt. For Ethan and Amelia, that moment arrived on an ordinary autumn morning, the kind of morning that seemed destined to be forgotten. Yet neither of them would ever forget it. A morning like any other. The sun had just begun climbing above the rooftops of Valmont. Golden light spilled across the narrow streets. Shopkeepers opened their doors. Cyclists rolled past flower-covered balconies. The town slowly awakened. Ethan followed the same route he followed almost every morning. A short walk, 2 turns, across the small square, then into his favorite coffee shop. For nearly 3 years, this routine had remained unchanged. The owner knew his order. The staff greeted him by name. It felt familiar, comfortable, safe. After everything life had thrown at him, he appreciated routine. Routine asked nothing from him. Routine never broke his heart. As he approached the cafe, he noticed a line inside, slightly longer than usual. He smiled. Tourists, probably passing through. Valmont attracted more visitors during autumn, especially photographers chasing the colorful countryside. He stepped inside. The familiar aroma of coffee surrounded him immediately. Freshly ground beans, warm pastries, vanilla, cinnamon, simple smells, comforting smells. He joined the line and checked his phone. Emails, messages, nothing urgent. Just another normal day, or so he thought. The voice. Several people stood ahead of him. A young couple, an elderly man, a woman near the counter. Ethan barely paid attention until she spoke. 1 cappuccino, please dash. The voice lasted only 4 words. 4 simple words. Yet they struck him like lightning. His entire body froze. Impossible. No. His mind rejected the possibility immediately. There were millions of people in the world. Thousands of women with similar voices. Thousands of coincidences. But his heart knew before his brain did. He slowly lifted his head. The woman stood with her back turned. Chestnut hair. A familiar pastel. A familiar silhouette. His pulse began racing. Every logical explanation disappeared. The world seemed strangely quiet. The sounds of the cafe faded. The conversations blurred into the background. Only one thought remained. It can't be. Then the woman turned. And time stopped. Hashtag Amelia. 5 years. 5 entire years. And yet he recognized her instantly. The same blue eyes. The same gentle features. The same smile he had spent years trying to forget. Only now there were subtle differences. A little older. A little wiser. A little sadder. Life had left its marks on both of them. For several seconds, neither moved. Neither spoke. Neither seemed capable of breathing. Amelia stared at him, her coffee forgotten. The color drained from her face. Ethan? His name left her lips, as though she wasn't certain he was real. As though speaking too loudly might make him disappear. Ethan opened his mouth. Nothing came out. His throat felt tight. His chest felt heavier than it had in years. Finally, he managed one word. Amelia dash. The silence that followed carried 5 years of history. 5 years of unanswered questions. 5 years of regret. 5 years of memories neither had truly escaped. People around them continued moving, ordering drinks, paying bills, opening doors, completely unaware that 2 lives had just collided again. The first conversation. Neither knew what to say. How could they? Where do you begin after 5 years? With hello? With goodbye? With an apology? With anger? Amelia spoke first. You live here? Ethan nodded. 3 years now dash. A small pause. Youth, yesterday dash. Despite everything, he almost laughed. The absurdity was unbelievable. Thousands of towns, millions of streets, and somehow they ended up here. The same place, the same morning, the same coffee shop. It felt impossible, yet there they stood. Reality often creates coincidences stranger than fiction. Amelia looked down briefly, then back at him. You look well dash. It wasn't entirely true. Neither of them looked untouched by life, but they looked stronger, more complete. Ethan smiled faintly. So, do you dash? Another silence. This one slightly less painful. Neither wanted to leave. Neither knew how to stay. Then the cafe owner interrupted. Your coffee, Amelia dash. The sound of her name seemed almost shocking. Ethan hadn't said it aloud in years, yet hearing it again felt strangely natural, as if part of him had been waiting. Hashtag coffee at the corner table. Amelia glanced toward the door, then back toward Ethan. Part of her wanted to run. The old version of herself would have. The version ruled by fear. The version that had disappeared 5 years earlier. But she wasn't that person anymore. At least she hoped she wasn't. She took a breath. A real breath. The kind people take before stepping into uncertainty. Would you? She hesitated. Would you like to sit for a minute? Ethan looked at her. 1,000 possible answers crossed his mind. Anger, resentment, confusion, pain, all of them justified. Yet beneath all of it existed something else. Curiosity. Because despite everything, there were still questions. Questions only she could answer. He nodded. Okay dash. They chose a small table near the window. The same table Ethan often used while reading. Neither found that coincidence amusing. The universe seemed determined to make this encounter impossible to ignore. For a moment they simply sat there. 2 cups of coffee. 2 people carrying years of unfinished history. Hashtag the weight of 5 years. Amelia wrapped both hands around her cup, mostly to stop them shaking. I never thought I'd see you again dash. Ethan studied her carefully. Neither did I dash. The honesty in his voice hurt, because it was true. For years she had imagined this moment. Rehearsed conversations, prepared apologies, constructed explanations. Now none of them seemed adequate. Nothing felt adequate. Not after what she had done. I looked for you dash. The words escaped before she could stop them. Ethan blinked. You did. She nodded. A few years later dash. His expression revealed surprise. Je n'ai une surprise. Why didn't you contact me? The question landed heavily between them, because both already knew the answer. Fear. Again. Always fear. Amelia looked away. I was ashamed dash. Ethan didn't respond immediately. The answer made sense, and somehow made everything worse, because it sounded exactly like her. Exactly like the woman he had known. The woman who felt everything too deeply. The woman who allowed fear to become stronger than hope. The woman he had loved. The woman he had lost. Hashtag the truth begins. Outside the window, people walked through the square. Life continued. Cars passed. Dogs barked. The world moved forward. Inside the cafe, time seemed slower, more fragile. Amelia stared into her coffee, then finally said the words she had carried for years. I'm sorry. Ethan looked at her quietly. No dramatic reaction. No anger. No accusation. Just silence, which somehow felt harder. Tears appeared in her eyes. I know sorry isn't enough dash. He remained silent. I know I hurt you dash. Still silence. Her voice trembled. And I know I probably don't deserve forgiveness dash. For a long moment neither spoke. Then Ethan finally leaned back in his chair and asked the question he had carried for 5 years. The question that had followed him across countries, across cities, across sleepless nights. One simple question. Why, Amelia? Not angry, not bitter, just honest. Why? Why leave? Why disappear? Why destroy everything they had built? Amelia closed her eyes, because she had known this question was coming. And now, after 5 years of silence, she was finally ready to answer. The answer would change everything, but neither of them knew that yet. All they knew was that fate had brought them back to the same table, the same morning, the same coffee shop, and for the first time in 5 years, their story was no longer over. Hashtag the coffee shop of second chances. Hashtag chapter 6, the truth she ran from. For years, Amelia had imagined this conversation. She had rehearsed it while walking through unfamiliar cities. She had whispered pieces of it to herself during sleepless nights. She had written versions of it in journals she never showed anyone, yet now that the moment had finally arrived, none of those rehearsed words seemed right, because the man sitting across from her wasn't a memory. He wasn't a dream. He wasn't part of her past anymore. He was real, and the pain she had caused him was real too. Outside, autumn leaves drifted across the square. Inside the cafe, the world felt unusually quiet. Ethan waited, not impatiently, not angrily, simply waiting for the truth, the complete truth. Perhaps for the first time, Amelia took a slow breath, then another, and finally spoke. Hashtag the fear that started long before him. It wasn't about you dash. Ethan didn't interrupt. It never was dash. She stared at her hands. For years she had hidden behind excuses. Now she was tired of hiding. When my mother died, something changed inside me dash. Her voice was steady at first, then softer. Everyone thought I was handling a dash. She laughed bitterly. I wasn't dash. Ethan listened carefully. The years had taught him patience. After she died, I became terrified of losing people dash. Amelia looked up. You know that already dash. He nodded. I knew some of it dash. Not all of it dash. A tear slid down her cheek. I spent years convincing myself that if I expected loss, it would hurt less when it happened dash. Ethan frowned slightly. But that's impossible, Dash. I know, Dash. A sad smile appeared. I know that now, Dash. She looked toward the window, watching strangers pass outside. People carrying groceries, people walking dogs, people living ordinary lives. I thought I was protecting myself, Dash. Her voice cracked. But all I was really doing was living in fear, Dash. The words hung between them. Simple, painfully honest. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag the moment everything changed. There was a night. Amelia continued. A few months before I left Dash. Ethan remained silent. I had a dream, Dash. His expression softened slightly. The dream. Somehow he wasn't surprised. It felt real, Dash. She swallowed hard. In the dream, you were gone, Dash. A long pause. I woke up crying, Dash. Ethan remembered those mornings. The exhaustion, the anxiety, the distance that slowly appeared between them. At the time, he hadn't understood. Now pieces were beginning to connect. I started imagining life without you, Dash. Amelia's eyes filled with tears again. Every day, Dash. Ethan felt something tighten in his chest, because he knew exactly where the story was heading. And eventually I convinced myself it was inevitable, Dash. She nodded, as if happiness was a lone life would eventually take back Dash. The sadness in her voice was overwhelming. Not dramatic, not exaggerated, just genuine regret. The regret of someone who finally understood the damage fear could cause. The question he never stopped asking. Ethan leaned forward slightly. There was something I never understood, Dash. Amelia looked at him. If you loved me. His voice remained calm. Why didn't you tell me? The question struck harder than anything else, because there was no good answer.
No justification.
No defense. Only truth. I should have, Dash. Her voice barely rose above a whisper. I know, Dash. Then why didn't you? Amelia closed her eyes. Because the answer embarrassed her. Even now. Because I was afraid you'd convince me to stay, Dash.
Silence.
The honesty of that statement settled heavily between them. Ethan stared at her. Not because he was angry, because he finally understood. She wasn't running from him. She had been running from herself. From her fears. From her grief. From wounds that existed long before they met. And the tragedy was that she had destroyed the very thing she wanted to protect. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag Ethan's side of the story. For a while, neither spoke. Then Amelia looked at him. What happened after I left? The question sounded small. Fragile. Ethan looked down at his coffee. Cold now. Untouched. He almost laughed. 5 years. And somehow this was still difficult. You really want to know? She nodded. Everything, Dash. Ethan exhaled slowly. Then began. The first few months were awful, Dash. Amelia lowered her eyes. I figured, Dash.
No.
He shook his head. You didn't, Dash. The words weren't cruel. Just honest. There were days I thought you'd come back, Dash. A painful smile appeared. I kept expecting a call, Dash. Her chest tightened. A call she never made. A message she never sent. An apology she never delivered. I searched for you, Dash. She closed her eyes. Because hearing those words hurt. Not because she didn't know. Because she did. And she hadn't been there. I contacted everyone, Dash. He continued quietly. Friends, family, old co-workers, Dash. Nothing.
No trace.
No explanation beyond a letter. Just silence. 5 years of silence. The guilt became almost unbearable. I'm sorry. Ethan gave a small nod. Not accepting the apology. Not rejecting it. Simply acknowledging it. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag the ring. Then something unexpected happened. Ethan smiled.
A sad smile.
The kind people wear when remembering something painful. There was something else, Dash. Amelia noticed immediately. What? For a moment he hesitated, then reached into his wallet. Carefully, slowly, he removed an old photograph. The edges were worn, the image slightly faded. Amelia recognized it instantly. It was from the lake, years ago, one of their favorite days together. She stared at it, then back at him. Why do you still have that? Ethan laughed softly. I could ask you the same thing, Dash. Her eyes widened. You kept one too? Of course, Dash. For the first time that morning, both smiled. A small smile, but real. Then Ethan's expression changed again. More serious. There was also a ring, Dash. Amelia froze. The world seemed to stop. She had suspected. Deep down, she had known. But hearing it aloud felt different. Far more real. Far more painful. A ring. Ethan nodded. I bought it a month before you left, Dash. Her eyes immediately filled with tears.
No, no, no.
Part of her wanted him to stop talking because she already knew what came next. Yet she needed to hear it. Needed to understand the full weight of what she had done. I was going to propose, Dash. The words landed like a stone. And Amelia broke. Tears spilled freely. Her shoulders trembled. Years of guilt suddenly became heavier. Not because she hadn't guessed. Because now there was no uncertainty. No possibility she had misunderstood. The future they dreamed about had been real. The house, the marriage, the family, everything. And she had walked away from it. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag the most difficult truth. I'm sorry. She couldn't stop saying it. The words felt inadequate, meaningless, yet they were all she had. I'm so sorry, Ethan Dash. He watched her quietly. Then something surprising happened. He reached across the table, not dramatically, not romantically, just gently, and placed his hand over hers. Amelia stared at him, shocked. You don't have to keep apologizing, Dash. Her voice cracked. Why? Because she expected anger, resentment, something, anything. Instead, she found compassion. The same compassion she remembered from years ago. Ethan's answer came softly. Because I've spent 5 years trying to understand, Dash. He paused. And now I finally do, Dash. The tears returned immediately. Stronger this time. Because forgiveness is sometimes harder to receive than punishment. #, a walk through Valmont. They remained in the cafe for another hour. Talking, listening, remembering. Eventually, the owner jokingly informed them they had occupied the same table longer than anyone in recent memory. Both laughed. And for a brief moment, the years between them seemed smaller. Not gone, just smaller. When they stepped outside, the afternoon sun bathed the town in warm golden light. The air smelled of autumn. Leaves drifted lazily across the sidewalks. Neither seemed eager to leave. Finally, Ethan spoke. Want to walk? Amelia looked at him. A simple invitation, yet it felt like something much larger. A door opening, a possibility, a second chance. Maybe not at love, not yet, but at understanding, at friendship, at healing. She nodded. I'd like that, Dash. Together they began walking through the narrow streets of Valmont. Not as strangers, not as lovers, not yet, but as two people carrying the same history. Two people finally speaking honestly after years of silence. Neither knew where the road would lead. Neither knew whether the past could truly be repaired. But for the first time in a very long time, both were willing to find out. #the coffee shop of second chances. #chapter 7, learning to trust again. The strange thing about reconnecting with someone you once loved is that nothing feels entirely new. And yet, nothing feels entirely familiar either. The person standing beside you is someone you know deeply. Someone who once knew your favorite songs, your fears, your habits, and your dreams. But years change people. Life changes people. Pain changes people. As Ethan and Amelia walked through the quiet streets of Valmont that afternoon, both felt it. The connection was still there, undeniably, but so was the distance created by 5 years apart. And neither of them wanted to pretend otherwise. Starting from the beginning. Over the following weeks, they began seeing each other regularly. At first, the meetings were simple. Coffee, walks, conversations, nothing more.
No promises, no expectations.
No discussions about getting back together. Both understood something important. The past couldn't simply be erased. Trust wasn't something that magically returned because two people wanted it to. Trust had to be rebuilt. Slowly, patiently, honestly. The first few meetings felt almost cautious. Like two people carefully crossing a frozen lake, testing every step. Sometimes they talked about old memories. Sometimes they talked about their lives now. Sometimes they talked about nothing important at all. Oddly enough, those were often the best conversations. One afternoon, they spent nearly an hour debating which bakery in town made the best croissants. Neither changed their opinion. Neither cared. They simply enjoyed laughing together. And for the first time in years, laughter didn't feel painful. #the new Amelia. Ethan noticed changes immediately. Small changes, but meaningful ones. The Amelia he remembered often hid her emotions. If something bothered her, she kept it inside. If she was scared, she pretended she wasn't. If she needed help, she rarely asked. This Amelia was different. Not completely different. The same kindness remained. The same intelligence. The same gentle heart. But there was a new honesty. A new courage. One evening they sat beside the river that flowed through Valmont. The water reflected the sunset in shades of gold and orange. Amelia seemed unusually quiet. Years ago, Ethan would have waited for her to speak. Now he simply asked, "What are you thinking about?" She looked at him, then answered immediately,
I'm scared.
The response surprised him, not because she was scared, because she admitted it. So am I, Ethan said. Amelia smiled softly. Really? Of course, Dash. She studied him. You don't seem scared, Dash. Ethan laughed. I've gotten better at hiding it, Dash. For a moment they sat in silence. Then Amelia took a deep breath. I'm scared because I don't want to hurt you again, Dash. The honesty struck him. 5 years ago, she would never have said that aloud. She would have carried it alone, allowed it to grow in darkness, allowed it to control her. Now she spoke it openly, and somehow that made all the difference. Daniel's opinion. Several weeks later, Ethan met Daniel for lunch. His old friend had immediately noticed the change. You look happy, Dash. Ethan rolled his eyes. You sound disappointed, Dash. I'm suspicious. Ethan laughed. Daniel leaned forward. It's her, isn't it? The silence answered the question. Daniel sighed, dramatically. I knew it, Dash. Ethan smiled despite himself. What exactly did you know? That if Amelia ever walked back into your life, you'd be incapable of acting normal. Ethan shook his head. It's not like that. Then what's it like? That question proved harder to answer, because Ethan wasn't entirely sure. He cared about her, deeply. Maybe he always would. But caring and trusting weren't the same thing. Daniel noticed the hesitation. His expression softened. Are you afraid she'll leave again? Ethan stared at the table. For several moments, he didn't answer. Finally, he nodded. Yeah. Daniel nodded too. That's understandable.
No judgment, no criticism.
Just understanding. Because some wounds heal, and some leave scars. Hashtag a rainy afternoon. 1 month after their reunion, rain covered Valmont. The kind of steady rain that seemed determined to last all day. Amelia arrived at the coffee shop carrying an umbrella. She immediately spotted Ethan near the window. A book rested in front of him. The same habit. Some things never changed. She smiled and sat down. What are you reading? Ethan held up the cover. Amelia laughed. No way. What? You remember? He smiled. Of course I remember. It was the same novel they had both reached for during their first meeting years ago. The book that had started everything. Neither spoke for a moment, both thinking about the same memory, the same rainy afternoon, the same accidental encounter, the same beginning. It's strange, Amelia said quietly. What is? If we hadn't both reached for that book. Ethan finished the thought. We never would have met. The realization felt strangely emotional, because life is often built on tiny moments, small choices, unexpected coincidences. A few seconds one way or another, and entire futures change. Hashtag the test. A few days later, something happened. Something small, yet important. Ethan received a phone call while walking with Amelia. The conversation lasted only a minute. When it ended, his expression changed. Immediately, Amelia noticed. What happened? Ethan looked away briefly. My mother. Fear appeared instantly in Amelia's eyes. Is she okay? She's fine. He paused. She fell at home. The injury wasn't serious, just a minor accident. But Ethan was worried. Amelia could see it. Years ago, situations like this often triggered her deepest fears. Any reminder of loss, any reminder of mortality, any reminder that people could disappear. She felt the old anxiety stirring, the old panic, the old instinct to run from uncomfortable emotions. For a brief moment, the familiar fear returned. Then something different happened. She stayed. She reached for Ethan's hand and squeezed it. I'm here. 3 simple words. Yet Ethan felt something shift inside him, because 5 years ago, fear would have taken control. 5 years ago, she might have disappeared emotionally, withdrawn, avoided the situation. Instead, she stood beside him, present, steady, exactly when he needed her. Hashtag the promise. Several evenings later, they sat on a hill overlooking the town. The lights of Valmont sparkled below. The night sky stretched endlessly above them. For a while, they simply enjoyed the silence. Then Amelia spoke. Ethan? Yeah. Her voice was quiet, almost nervous. I need to tell you something. He turned toward her. She looked directly into his eyes.
No hesitation, no words, no hiding.
If I get scared again. She stopped, gathering courage. If I ever feel that fear coming back. Ethan waited. This mattered. They both knew it. Amelia took a breath. I won't run. The word seemed small, but their meaning wasn't. Not after everything. Not after 5 years. Not after the pain they had endured. She continued. I'll talk to you. A tear appeared in her eye. I'll tell you the truth. Another pause. I'll stay. Ethan felt emotion rise unexpectedly, because this wasn't merely a promise. It was proof. Proof that she had changed. Proof that she had learned. Proof that she was finally choosing courage over fear. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Ethan smiled. A genuine smile. The kind Amelia hadn't seen in years. And for the first time since their reunion, hope appeared. Not certainty. Not guarantees. Just hope. Sometimes that's enough. Falling again. Neither could identify exactly when it happened. Perhaps because love rarely announces its arrival. It grows quietly, patiently, moment by moment, conversation by conversation, smile by smile, somewhere between morning coffees and evening walks, between shared memories and new experiences, between honesty and forgiveness. They began falling in love again, not with the people they had been, with the people they had become, stronger, wiser, more honest, more human. The love felt different now, less idealized, less fragile, built not on dreams, but on understanding. And one evening, as they walked home beneath a sky full of stars, both realized the same thing. The story they thought had ended 5 years ago might actually be beginning again. Only this time, they were finally ready for it. Hashtag the coffee shop of second chances. Hashtag chapter 8, the second chance. Winter arrived gently in Valmont. The lavender fields beyond the town had long since faded into muted shades of gray and silver. The The trees that lined the narrow streets stood bare beneath pale skies, and each morning a thin layer of frost decorated the rooftops like scattered diamonds. The town seemed quieter now, slower, more peaceful, and for Ethan something had changed. For the first time in years, he was no longer simply existing. He was living again, not because life had suddenly become perfect, not because the past had disappeared, but because he had finally stopped carrying it alone. Amelia had become part of his days once more. Morning coffees, afternoon walks, weekend markets, long conversations that stretched late into the evening. The more time they spent together, the more obvious something became. Neither of them was the same person they had been 5 years earlier. The young woman who ran away no longer existed. The man who waited endlessly for answers no longer existed either. Life had reshaped them, and somehow, despite everything, it had guided them back toward one another. A different kind of love. One evening, snow began falling over Valmont. It wasn't a heavy storm, just soft flakes drifting through the air. Ethan and Amelia walked through the town square beneath streetlights glowing warm against the darkness. The world felt almost unreal. Quiet, beautiful, timeless. Amelia looked up at the falling snow. Its strange dash. What is? She smiled. I used to think love was supposed to remove fear dash. Ethan glanced at her. And now? She laughed softly. Now I think love means having someone beside you while you're afraid dash. Ethan stopped walking. The simplicity of her words struck him. Because she was right. For years both of them had misunderstood love. They had imagined it as protection from pain, protection from uncertainty, protection from loss. But love wasn't protection. Love was partnership. It was choosing someone again and again, even when life became difficult. Especially when life became difficult. Ethan took her hand. Their fingers intertwined naturally, comfortably, as if they had always belonged there. And for a brief moment, standing beneath falling snow in a small French town, both felt something they hadn't felt in a very long time. Peace. #, the ring returns. Several days later, Ethan opened a drawer in his apartment. At the very back sat a small wooden box. The same box, the same ring, the ring that had waited 5 years. For a long moment, he simply stared at it. Memories flooded back immediately. The apartment, the plans, the letter, the heartbreak, everything. Then another memory appeared. The coffee shop, the reunion, the conversations, the healing, the laughter, the second chance. Slowly, he opened the box. The ring sparkled exactly as it had years ago. Patient, waiting. A strange smile appeared on his face. Life was unpredictable, cruel at times, beautiful at others. But just perhaps, this ring had been waiting for the right moment all along. #, Amelia's discovery. A few days later, Amelia visited Ethan's apartment. They planned to cook dinner together. A simple evening. Nothing special. At least, that's what she believed. While Ethan prepared ingredients in the kitchen, Amelia noticed an old photograph resting on a shelf. The lake. The same photograph. The same day. The same memory. She picked it up carefully. You still keep this? Ethan smiled. Some things are worth keeping dash. She looked at him, then at the photograph. A lump formed in her throat, because she finally understood something. He hadn't forgotten. He hadn't erased their story. Despite everything, despite the pain, part of him had always carried it, just as she had. That realization felt both beautiful and heartbreaking. Perhaps true love wasn't measured by perfection. Perhaps it was measured by endurance. #, the invitation. A week before Christmas, Ethan invited Amelia to meet him at the coffee shop. Their coffee shop, the one where they had reunited, the one where fate had decided to interfere. Amelia found the request slightly unusual, but she agreed. When she arrived that morning, the cafe looked magical. Garlands decorated the windows. Small lights glowed softly throughout the room. Christmas music played quietly in the background. The owner greeted her with an unusually large smile, which should have been her first clue. Yet she didn't notice. She was too focused on Ethan. He stood near the window, exactly where they had sat during their first conversation after 5 years apart. For some reason, he looked nervous, very nervous. Amelia approached. You okay? Ethan laughed. Not really dash. Now she became concerned. What happened? Instead of answering, he looked around the room. The cafe seemed unusually quiet. Then she noticed something. Several customers were watching, smiling, waiting. Confusion spread across her face. Ethan? His hands trembled slightly. And suddenly Amelia understood. Or, at least part of her did. Her heart began racing. No. Ethan smiled. The same smile she had fallen in love with years ago. The same smile she thought she had lost forever. Then he reached into his coat pocket and removed a small wooden box. #, the proposal. The entire cafe seemed to disappear. The sounds, the people, the music, everything faded away. Only Ethan remained. Only Ethan. Slowly, he stepped closer. His voice was steady despite his nerves. You know. He laughed softly. I had a speech prepared 5 years ago. Tears immediately filled Amelia's eyes. Ethan. I spent months working on a dash. A few people in the cafe smiled. Others already looked emotional. I thought it was perfect. His smile widened. Then life had other plans. Amelia could barely breathe. The tears had already begun falling. Ethan continued, but looking back. He glanced at the ring, then back at her. I'm glad I never gave that speech. Now, even the cafe owner appeared emotional. Because the woman standing in front of me today isn't the same woman I knew back then. Amelia cried openly, no longer attempting to hide it. And I'm not the same man either. His voice softened. We've both made mistakes. He paused. We've both been hurt. Another pause. We've both spent years learning how to heal. Then he looked directly into her eyes. And if there's one thing I've learned. The room fell completely silent. It's that life is too short to spend it apart from the person you love. The wooden box opened. The ring sparkled beneath the cafe lights. The same ring, 5 years later. Still waiting. Still perfect. Ethan lowered himself onto one knee. A collective gasp filled the room. Amelia covered her mouth, unable to stop crying, unable to speak, unable to believe this was real. Then came the question Destiny had delayed for half a decade.
Amelia heartstreepje.
His voice trembled slightly. Will you stay? A tear rolled down his cheek. Will you stay with me for all the years we still have left? Another pause. The most beautiful pause of their lives. Then Amelia nodded. Once, twice, again, unable to form words. Finally, she managed a whisper. Yes. More tears. Yes. A laugh through tears. Yes, Ethan. The cafe erupted into applause. Cheers. Laughter.
Joy.
But neither heard much of it, because at that moment, their entire world existed within a few feet of space.
Just the two of them.
Finally, together. Hashtag the wedding. The wedding took place the following spring, in the French countryside, surrounded by lavender fields. Friends traveled from different countries. Family members gathered. Even Daniel cried during the ceremony, though he would deny it forever. The day was beautiful, not because everything was perfect, because it wasn't. There were nervous moments, unexpected problems, minor disasters, just like every wedding. But none of that mattered. What mattered was simple. Two people who had once lost each other had found their way back. When Amelia walked down the aisle, Ethan couldn't stop smiling. When Ethan said his vows, Amelia couldn't stop crying. And when they finally kissed as husband and wife, everyone present felt privileged to witness something rare. Not merely love, but a second chance at love. Hashtag epilogue. Years later, visitors to Valmont often noticed a couple sitting together in a small coffee shop near the town square. Sometimes reading, sometimes talking, sometimes simply enjoying the silence. The owner always smiled when he saw them, because he knew their story. The story of two people who almost lost everything. The story of fear, forgiveness, growth, and hope. One afternoon, long after their wedding, Amelia asked a question. Do you ever regret it? Ethan looked up from his coffee. Regret what? Giving me another chance. He smiled immediately, without hesitation, without doubt.
No.
Amelia laughed softly. Not even a little? Ethan reached for her hand. The same hand he had held countless times. The same hand he thought he had lost forever. Then he answered. The first chapter of our story was beautiful. He squeezed her fingers gently, but the second chapter. His smile widened. The second chapter was worth waiting for. Outside, the streets of Valmont glowed beneath the afternoon sun. Life continued. People passed by. The world moved forward. And inside the little coffee shop where fate had reunited two broken hearts, Ethan and Amelia sat together. Not because life had been easy, not because their journey had been perfect, but because love, when given courage, patience, and a second chance, had finally brought them home. The end.